So the next part is the hierarchy and the complexity of the human body. We are going to look at the interrelatedness of body by looking at one system at a time. But to understand that, you need to understand that this body is made up of a lot of small chemicals that are made up of even smaller components known as atoms. Okay, so atom. Yeah, so these chemicals are really small components that are made up of microscopic atoms, and several atoms combine into structures known as molecules. Okay, so molecules are made up of atoms. Several molecules combine to form macromolecule. Macro means larger. Okay, macromolecules, and these macromolecules in turn form organelles. Organelles are little pockets in the cells that perform a specific function. You will understand this better when we look at chapter 3. Uh, and organelles, um, in turn, complete the intended structure of a cell. Okay, now cell is the basic functional unit of the human body. Okay, now atom is the smallest non-living component in the human body, but the cell is the smallest living structure in the human body. Cells are microscopic structures that are made up of several different organelles, and each cell can acquire a different shape, a different size, different functions. Cells that are grouped together are called tissues. So you can see that these are cuboidal cells. Several cuboidal cells are grouped together to form a tissue. And well, tissues in turn are grouped together to form organs, and similarly, organs that perform similar functions or similar, they take part in similar physiology, combine to form an organ system. So right over here, you see the stomach, and different parts of the abdomen are the intestine, the stomach, large and small, and you have the liver. All of these combine to form an organ system. And organ systems finally combine to form a complete living organism. Okay, so body parts are organized according to different complexities. So atom is the smallest non-living thing, whereas the cell is the smallest living unit. Okay, so this is the smallest structural unit that is living in the human body. Okay, so keep in mind that cell, I'm gonna write that down. Cell is the smallest unit of life. An organelle is not alive. Okay, if you pull out an organelle and put them in a solution, they may not be alive for very long. But if you take a cell, keep giving it food, the cells can stay alive for a very, very long time in man-made food solution. Okay, and that's called cell culture. But just keep in mind, the smallest functional unit of life is a cell. Okay, so anatomy and physiology will focus on different body system one at a time. And we have even different body systems. First one is the endocrine system. Endocrine system has everything to do with hormone production. Okay, so endocrinology is the field of study of endocrine glands. Okay, so when you have diabetes or you have a thyroid problem, you're referred to an endocrinologist, right? So The other system is cardiovascular system. Cardiovascular system has everything to do with the heart and blood vessels and circulation of the blood, heartbeat. Okay, so the components of cardiovascular system include blood, heart, and blood vessels. And then we have the digestive system. Digestive system has everything to do with digestion. So everything from the mouth down to the pharynx, the esophagus, which is the alimentary canal, all the way down to the stomach, the intestine, all the way to the anus and the rectum, comprised of the digestive system. Because this is where food is broken down, digested, nutrients are absorbed, and all the waste product is let out. Then you have the urinary system. The urinary system mainly is made of kidneys, ureter and urinary bladder, and urethra. And urinary system also helps in uh, eliminating wastes from the body. It also regulates the volume of fluids in the body. By fluids, I mean water, ions like sodium, potassium, bicarbonate ions. It helps in maintaining the pH of the body, and it helps in maintaining acid-base balance mainly. The other system includes let's talk about reproductive system first. Reproductive system, of course, include the gonads, testes or ovaries in females, and all the associated structures, including the uterine tubes, uterus, vagina in females, epididymis, ductus deferens, and penis in males, and all the accessory organs around here. And their main function is to produce gonads. Their main function is to produce gametes, that is sperm in males and oocytes in females. And then we have the respiratory system, which has everything to do with exchange of gases in the body and exchange of gases to and from the atmosphere. So the lung, everything down from the nasal cavity. Then you have the pharynx, which is the throat, larynx, the voice box, trachea is the windpipe, and all the way to the lungs. Everything over here is a part of the respiratory system. Not only this, we have a lot of capillaries over here that are responsible for exchanging gases from the circulatory system. Okay, so the main functions of the respiratory system is to transfer gases from the inhaled air to the blood. It helps in removing excess carbon dioxide. So the lungs and the respiratory system also play a very important role in the acid-base balance of the body fluids. And then we have the lymphatic system. One thing that is not over here is the nervous system that we'll talk about in just a second. But lymphatic system is the system associated with immunity. And its main job is to return excess fluids and proteins back to the circulatory system. Okay, so we'll talk about lymphatic system in the later chapters in Anatomy 2. And the systems that are missing over here are the nervous system. Then you have the integumentary system. The nervous system is everything to do with the nerves, the brain, the spinal cords, and all the associated nerves emerging from it. The second part of the semester will mainly focus on the nervous system. It's a really big system, but nervous system and endocrine system both together are major communication systems of the body. So apart from, let me write that down. So you have the nervous system, and then you have the integumentary system. Integumentary system is a system that deals with the skin and the subcutaneous tissue and all the associated structures. And then you have the muscular system. and the skeletal system. Okay, so all of these together make up the human body, and we will be talking about each of these systems in a lot more detail. Okay, so before we move on to the further chapter, just understand that the body systems are interrelated. So we are going to talk about the interrelatedness in every chapter. Although we study them as the individual system, they are interconnected in reality. For examples, muscles don't move unless they are assisted by the skeleton, right? Uh, and skeleton doesn't move unless they're assisted by the muscle, and so on. And the skeleton and the muscles don't really move a lot of time if they are, voluntary muscles. They don't move unless they get a signal from the brain. So in a sense, all the body systems are interconnected. Okay, so if you remember, I keep talking about form and function and how shape and structure are related. Shape and structure dictate the physiology of the structure. Let's see what's over here. Um, now you have this picture of a teeth, right? So imagine if you had spongy teeth. Would you be able to chew your food? No, right? You won't be able to chew if you had spongy teeth, and that's why the teeth is really, really hard. You cannot have foamy teeth. Okay, and this guy over here, he has really well-built muscles, right? If you remove the muscles or if the muscles are wasted, you'll just have, wimpy hands, skinny hands. And if his muscles have atrophied or wasted, then he might even lose the function of that muscle. If you don't use the muscles, they lose function, right? So um, bones. Now you cannot have really soft bones. When you have soft bones, you end up having fractures, right? It will, like for especially the bones on the legs, if you have really soft bones or wore out bones, your bones in your legs won't be able to withstand the weight of the body, right? And another example of structure and function is, let's take an example of the pelvic bone. Man has a different pelvic bone structure. And that's the reason we are able to walk on 2 feet. Gorillas do not walk on 2 feet because they have a different pelvic bone structure, because of which they can only walk on 4 feet. We can't walk on 4 feet. We can, but then we'll get tired really quick. Okay, so keep in mind form and function and are related, and shape and structure are related. Okay. Now, anatomical variations. Keep in mind, no two humans are alike. Different humans are different. Okay. Now, books show just the most common organization of the structure, but some individuals lack certain muscles. For example, some people have a well-built ab muscle. Okay, but some people just have a big mush in the belly uh, because they have not used the abdominal muscles. So eventually some of these muscles get fused, or they just get atrophied or wasted, right? And some individuals have an atypical number of vertebrae. Instead of 7 cervical, somebody might have 8 cervical, and so on. Cervical bones. And then some individuals have atypical number of organs. We'll look at the example of uh, the kidney, okay, in a minute. And then sometimes the heart might be inverted in some people, but in general, status inversus is the left and right reversal of an organ placement. Okay, Here are some examples of anatomical variations from your textbook. This is what a normal kidney looks like, and then somebody might have a pelvic kidney, somebody might have a horseshoe kidney. Some people might just be born with one kidney. I had a friend who was born with only one kidney. So she just peed a lot, okay, because there was just one kidney doing all the job, and then she did not have a big enough bladder. So obviously the kidney was doing a lot of work, and she didn't know this until she was 26 years old. She was just fine, she was healthy, but again, she was born with an anatomical variation. And this is an example of heart. This is what the normal branches above the heart look like. Sometimes it might look like this, or like this, or like this, right? And then syndactyly is a very common example of an anatomical variation. Syndactyly is a condition where the webbing of the fingers or the toes are absent in either completely or just maybe in one place. Okay, so maybe two or more digits are fused together. It's sometimes normal. And I like this picture over here. This is a very nice attitude, Baron. Somebody went and tattooed this condition, okay? But this is a fairly common condition. Now, another variation which is not so common is this one right over here. Okay, so take a minute, pause the video, and look at these pictures. Which of the two seem abnormal? Well, if you said this picture right here is abnormal, you are right. Because this picture, oh, where is a marker? Yeah, so this picture that I'm pointing to, the one that is blue, you see the indentation of the heart is towards the left. Okay, so this is an X-ray and this is where the heart is present. Now in this person, the indentation is more towards the right. That means the heart is present, the apex of the heart is present in the right side of uh, the vertebrae, which is a condition known as situs inversus. Okay, now this is an anatomical variation. The person is a normally functioning person, but their heart is present in a different position than other people. Physiological variation in human is also extremely common, right? Um, Now, for example, a person of the same gender might have different, physical activity, physical characteristic, right? So it is important to measure the height and weight and consider the age of a person while uh, medicating the patients, right? And that's why you actually weigh them and then you calculate how much dosage they require based on their height and weight and age, of course. And the medications will also differ based on whether they have any physical condition. Just say somebody goes in with a bacterial infection, but they have a liver condition or a kidney condition. So you cannot give them a medication that will damage the kidney and the liver further, right? So that's why you always consider physiological variation in the clinical setup. A typical example of physiological variation is that a man who's 22 years old and 154 lb who does light to moderate physical activity may consume about 2800 kilocalories a day, but a woman of the same um, height and weight and who's about 22 years old will take about 2000 calories a day, which is usually enough, right? Another example is that a normal woman may take about 2000 calories a day, but a woman who has given birth and was lactating is constantly hungry uh, because she is nursing the child. If she's nursing the child, she gets really hungry and she might consume about 2500 to 3000 kilocalories a day. So physiological variation differs from person to person, and it also depends largely on the age, the physical activity, the gender, and the race of the person as well. okay, a lot of time.